hat as a professional development coordinator, those of you who are. And we've worked in Maryland with aligning all of our standards now with the Learning Forward Standards for Professional Learning. So we're really excited to have him come and talk to us a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing around induction and coaching and mentoring so that we can share some more resources with you.
Thank you, Heather. And just to review quickly what's in the packet, Heather always is generous enough to share brownies with all of us. So I decided to share on behalf of the organization a membership to Learning Forward. And if you go to the back part of Learning Forward, you have a one-year membership that you can sign up for if you would like. So I always like to start out with gifts. Makes you like me more.
Better than brownies.
So today I'm here on the agenda to talk about Coaches Connect and talk about the Center for Results' work on coaching, specifically coaching in an online environment that we are testing out for the first time this year. So before that, though, I want to actually engage all of you in some learning, if that's okay. And we'll talk a little bit about coaching, about professional development, and think about what you're trying to accomplish in Maryland to implement the Common Core and all of the other big initiatives that you're trying to move forward. So if you will indulge me, we're going to start off with the purposes of professional learning. How many of you are familiar with 3 purposes of professional learning? That makes sense? Does that sound familiar? Some in the audience have actually been part of this presentation before, so I see heads nodding from PG County. But starting out with the 3 purposes of professional development, what all of you are engaged in at this moment in the state of Maryland. Program implementation. Does that sound familiar? Common Core, trying to make sure all teachers are making those instructional shifts necessary so that students can grasp these new, more rigorous standards, academic and content standards. So program implementation is one purpose of professional learning, an important purpose. It's the purpose that usually comes from the state or from the district level that says we are going to set as a priority implementation of a specific set of teaching practices, of content and academic standards. So that is what most people think of when they think of professional development. What new program am I going to put in the hands of educators, and what are they going to implement? But there's more than just program implementation. The second is school improvement. So all of this is very familiar to you as we're talking about PLCs, or professional learning communities. There are some things that we expect the principal and the educators to lead in terms of professional learning. And that is how to improve the quality of teaching and learning at the school-based level, based on the particular needs of that own school context. So school improvement is the second purpose of professional learning. The third purpose of professional learning is actually becoming way more important these days with the implementation of a teacher evaluation system. Many school systems that are implementing teacher evaluation systems are going whole hog on individual improvement. Technology is even moving us forward on individual improvement. Learning Forward, and particularly the Center for Results that I direct, has been working with the Gates Foundation for quite some time, thinking about new IPD strategies, or innovative professional development is what one group calls it. Another group calls it intelligent professional development. But the whole point of it is that you are taking all of the data that exists, making professional development personalized, making it really based on student achievement data, based on evaluation data, in a fully integrated system, so that leveraging technology, we can make professional development more relevant. Our fear at Learning Forward is that the rush to make the rush of technology to allow for this IPD to happen may actually minimize the other two pieces, program implementation and school improvement. We think that there's a lot of promise with IPD, but we think more comprehensively, we need to think about all three purposes. Every district should be planning to address all three purposes. Every state should be planning to address all three purposes of professional development. When we do that, we will get a comprehensive system of professional learning in a school system. Just another quick primer on modes of professional learning. So think about those big strategic purposes. Now, how are we going to facilitate or deliver that learning for educators? And these, I call them modes of professional learning. Some of you might know of them as learning designs. What I tried to do was actually group those learning designs into a more simple system of 4. So the first is training. Training as a mode of professional learning is professional learning that is made for kind of broad dissemination of information. I'm sure here with the Common Core, you've actually started with some large-scale meetings where you're engaging all educators at one time, or many educators at one time, on gaining awareness of the professional, or I'm sorry, of the Common Core standards, the content that's in there. So training is one big piece that you can use, one mode of professional learning. A second is independent study and reflection. We still do this quite a bit, but thinking about independent book studies. You know, we still pick up our book as our own professional learning to guide us in our own professional learning and try to learn from that text and try to apply it as much as we can. But really, that's independently guided professional learning. The second part of that independently guided professional learning happens when you think about technology. So how many of you are using PD 360 or Teaching Channel? All of those resources that a teacher can now pick up in a very high quality video format and learn new practices on their own. That may or may not be guided by a professional development coordinator or a coach at the school, but it's a teacher picking up a resource, whether it's a book or these new independent resources that you can get online, and trying to learn and apply them in their own practice. That's the second mode of professional learning. The third mode of professional learning is team-based professional learning. Again, something you're very familiar with the professional learning communities. At Learning Forward, we want to make sure that people think of professional learning communities in a new way. We think PLC has become a very common term and overly applied to things that might not be real professional learning. It might be collaboration. It might be professional communities. But we want to emphasize that L in PLC. So when you see me write PLC to all of you, and in a positive way, I will write a little p, a big L, and a little c. Because at Learning Forward, we think that the value of PLCs is really the learning. So the educator needs to be intentional about the learning. And then the final mode of professional learning that I want to talk about is one-to-one professional learning, or coaching. Many school districts have invested quite a bit in one-on-one coaching, mentors, things that all of you are familiar with induction mentors and coaches at the school level. So those are the 4 different types of professional learning that we see commonly. Of course, you can see variations of them, or scaffolding, or linking different parts of those modes together to make strong professional learning. In fact, we often say that the best professional learning touches upon each one of these. Does anybody have any questions about the modes of PD? Pretty straightforward.
I love the lowercase p, the uppercase L, the lowercase c.
Me too.
That's my takeaway. I'm gonna hang on to that. I really, really like that. That was very thoughtful and being intentional about the learning. What'd you say?
It's trademark.
Oh, trademark,
So I
copyright.
throw them a nickel each time you put it in right.
You'll get a bill. But it really is important that people start thinking about the intentionality. It's not about meeting in groups. It's not magical that if you sit around a table that you're actually going to learn something. For us, it's not learning until you apply it and you change your practice. And so that's why that L is a capital letter L.
I like it. Thank you.
As we're thinking about these modes of professional learning, one of the things that I often do is ask school systems that are in an audience like this is to reflect on their own professional learning in their districts. How does it break down in your school system? Is most of the professional learning in your school system up in the upper left-hand corner in training? I've been in a school district where that's the case, where training has been the largest mode of professional development invested in. They invested heavily in creating professional development opportunities, putting them online, making courses, making a big catalog of professional learning opportunities in their school district. I would say about 90 in this particular school district, 90% of their investment went to training. I don't really have judgment on the fact training over one-on-one, over independent, over team-based, but it was interesting to see such a heavy concentration in one of the four modes. Some other school districts are all the way on the opposite side. I'll say this is a charter school system, a unit, that really focused on coaching. So they went the other direction, and instead of focusing on training, they spent 90% of their money on one-to-one professional learning. So they had a very small coaching to instructor ratios. But still, probably, I don't even think that they were happy with their ability to connect with each individual instructor to the levels they wanted. So just think about, in your own personal time, how you structure or invest in professional learning in your school district. Now look at the different application here. Using the Joyce and Showers research, we looked at the potential scale of professional learning and how each mode interacts with scale, as in terms of how many people do you touch with this professional learning, and impact. How likely is that learning going to result in actual changes in practice? So think about your own school system, think about your investments, and plot yourself in those areas. How does that feel to you? Why don't I give about 1 minute for you to work in your groups and discuss about your school system, or you can even pick on the state, since they're here. And they promise not to listen, or they'll bribe you with more brownies.
I know.
But think about that. Where are you putting your money, your effort, your time, and what kind of output are you getting because of it? So let's pause for about a minute. You can have that discussion at your table.
This is the state funding. We just had 7,000 people in for the last 3 years for large-scale training, which was very, very good. But if it's not followed up,
We're going
yeah, if it's not followed up, and it turns out that this week we're starting.
I get the
site visits for every one of our districts. And what I appreciate, what we're doing is and what are they doing and what do they need? So I'm going to talk to my boss. I have another boss about how this analysis of the needs assessments, because we have provided that at least for some people in every school in there, which is quite educating for the implementation of the Common Core. But I think in terms of our needs assessment, that would be great.
Well, and that's right at what USDA is asking us about, is that they know that we're doing that, but how do we make sure that it's translated into action? How can we improve? And that this would be a good graphic to address that.
No, I actually, but it's fairly came out of our work for Mississippi schools, and then we used it with knowledge.
So
I just
what
think
I'm
that's a
thinking
great-
at the PD meeting, we have a November 6th, we have a PD coordinators meeting. And this might be something to show that.
Maybe it's nothing.
I think you're right. So
Can I call this meeting back to order? I'm interested in hearing what your discussions at your table sounded like. Does anybody willing to share? Just one or two tables?
Well, we were just discussing of our agreement or disagreement with this. I really like all four, and yes, and I think my system is really in each of those four. I'm wondering about the shallow impact to the deep impact, and saying like independent and book studies when it's a fairly large group at a particular school doing a book study and really impacting their school. I would say that I get deeper impact from that than what this graphic kind of shows. But
So my question is that really the team-based professional learning?
it is.
Have you identified a specific goal, decided a specific resource that you're going to use, and are working together to acquire new knowledge and then apply it together? Is that more team-based?
okay, so I guess that's a good point, because I'm trying to think of like the current 5 different book studies that we have going
Sure.
on at different schools. They're not always a PLC. They might really cut across that, but then it's the team of the school. Good
Right.
point. Thank you. That's why you're there.
Just to clarify the model. Don't mess with the model, right?
But good discussions around.
Oh, another table.
Without claiming to speak for all, I'll just try to repeat something I thought. If you look at it as a sequence of training, you can go through the various layers and move from the large scale stand and deliver to you all. Here's the next 2 things you will do when you get back into your schools with your grade level teams. And here's the one-on-one coaching that can be provided by our resource that comes back around to you. So it's not one or the other, but blending and sequencing leads you towards that, I guess, to the top right corner.
And how powerful would that be if we as system planners and organizers of professional learning really scaffolded that work out? So if Common Core, in the very first year, it might be appropriate to do large-scale trainings, but then to scaffold out the different types of learning streams that are necessary in order to lead to implementation. But that takes a new level of planning that many school systems haven't thought of, right? The district or the state thinks about the large-scale training, but then it doesn't trickle down about how you're going to have that consistent through line. You want to?
I think the interesting thing about separating it in this way is that you can think not only about how something could happen chronologically, like maybe go training, team, one-to-one independent, or how the particular initiative or learning that's going on might warrant the need for one type of professional learning, or how there might be a need for a simultaneous combined method. It gives you a way of planning, and you can choose from those. It's like, well, what do they need to learn, and which combination or order or individual method would work best. I really like that.
And that's something we were just talking about with Renee on the side here about one of the big things that we're getting from the USDE is they understand that we're doing training. The EEA's with a massive undertaking in training. The investment academies are a massive undertaking in training, but they want to know, we understand that, but how are you getting to the rest of it to have impact? We're not saying we don't understand the point of training. We understand that without action, there is no impact. So how are you making that connection? So I love that graphic for that reason.
Just one perspective I want to share.
I think this is very dependent on people. For instance, I'm looking at team-based. And something that I struggle with is, we are supposed to be having collaborative planning in our schools. And that works great in my one school where the non-teaching DC is trained to lead that planning and ask critical questions. And then we go to another school where the team is all first-year teachers and nobody to lead it. And they think they're doing team-based, but the depth of what they're doing, that they're not going to have a deep impact. So I think it really depends on the guidance that people who are putting this into place and giving people the supports to carry this.
Agreed. I think you're saying that they might be doing the PC without the L in some schools.
Oh, there's a lot of that around.
I think it's, somebody was sitting next to me who was in the central office, and we were watching this video about, it was a collaborative planning session from PD 360, and she said, don't you think we're past this? We do this. I was like, well, we do it in some places, but I wouldn't say across the board this is everyone's practice.
I think this model is dependent on thinking of each one of those in their ideal sense, not ideal as in the thing that we should be shooting for, but the ideal in terms of how you think of ideal type in sociology or normative political theory, right? This is the ideal type philosophy. So, of course, there are variations in real-life practice on this earth, but if you were thinking about it in the essence of training or the essence of team-based professional learning, the research tells us that it'll generally come out.
To further complicate this, the tiling of new people coming along. So this year, I just teach my rear end off. I train, I get everybody through this, and now I've got 10% new teachers next year.
That's right.
8% turnover.
Yeah.
They're on a different cycle now, and kind of expected to. Well, we told everybody last year. I was in the senior class. I was, drinking with my friends on Friday night. I wasn't here with you, And,
Well, and all of you, exactly, as induction coordinators, right? So the types, the one slide I did not include in here was talking about the different types of teachers and how a different mix might be appropriate for a different type of teacher. Some of the work that we did with the Gates Foundation actually talks about identifying different profiles, common teacher profiles, whether it's the new teacher, 0 to 3 years experience, whether it's the average teacher based on student achievement data outcomes and teacher evaluation data. Are they average? Are they high performing based on your rubrics? Are they low performing? And what types of professional learning is actually warranted for each one of those stages. So,
All right. And another complicating variable is capacity too. I mean, if you're in Cecil County and you have a 1 to 8,000 ratio of mentors to teacher, how much one-to-one support can you provide? Versus a school system that has a 1 to 15 ratio with the teacher. That's another thing you have to think about in the process.
So isn't professional learning easy?
So simple.
Especially when I can break it down into 4. So this was just a quick way of helping you engage in thinking about the work that you're doing. I wanted to emphasize that Foursquare was based a lot on this Joyce and Showers research, which talks about kind of scaffolding different types of professional learning and its relative likelihood of entering into practice. So again, as Joyce and Showers talk about, you get certain kinds of return when you're talking about exposing teachers to theory. If you have them demonstrate, if you demonstrate the specific practice that you're trying to get them to adopt, that goes up. The same with having them practice, giving them feedback. But then when you have that one-on-one coaching, whether it's peer-to-peer or formal instructional coaching, you actually can get to that 90% implementation rate of that new strategy, that new learning. So I say all this because we know that if you do all of those, you can get, and do coaching, that you can get to a pretty high level of fidelity when it comes to implementing new practices. And now, why are we all here? We're here to talk about coaching, the role that all of you play. We know that Maryland invests in mentors and coaches pretty significantly. It varies from district to district, as we know, Cecil County, 2 to 8 million, is that what you said? And some others have a much nicer ratio. But why don't we stop here?
My boss. Before you go home with stories.
Why don't we stop here, and I'm going to have you think a little bit more. So on your left-hand side of your packet, there are 3 questions. You're going to focus on the very first question. Sorry about that. Grabbed it together. Can you remind me what the first question says? The first question on here is reflection. Identify challenges facing mentors and coaches under the existing model in Maryland. We talked a little bit about one, but why don't you take about 30 seconds to do that individually, and then kind of in a popcorn mode, we'll have you shout out some of the challenges that exist. By the way, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind writing it down, I'm taking some of this information back with me, so I'd love for you to write it down nicely.
Legibly.
You don't have to put your name on it.
And then if you wouldn't mind sharing it back with me at the end of the session, I would love to collect these. So what are some of the challenges facing mentors and coaches under the existing model in Maryland?
And I'll try to frantically take notes as they pop up.
All right. So you've had a chance to think about your own school system and think about those challenges that exist. I would love to get an idea of some of the challenges that exist with the purpose of thinking about whether technology, this new movement of IPD, can actually help alleviate or, in some cases, might exacerbate some of these challenges. So, somebody want to raise their hand and share?
I think using time wisely and most effectively to mentor or coach.
So the time that you actually have allocated to an individual, or maybe more than an individual, but
Yes.
that interaction time? Okay.
piggyback on what she's saying, not only time for the coach, but time that the teacher has to work with as a coach. Because we're finding that that is a huge, huge challenge.
So the release time to actually get access to that, maybe it's not release time, but
Right.
some kind of structure where that teacher could actually benefit from that coaching.
It's one of the rare situations we can afford more time than by dollars than the teachers can afford to be away from their classrooms and be out of touch with their students.
Go here.
For districts that have full-time mentors, I think the challenge is just keeping the mentors up to date on what it's like to be a teacher with SLOs and Common Core and curriculum changes, new technology that mentor never taught with or under those circumstances.
Say that again. Say that the skills of the mentor or the coach don't necessarily match up with what's happening today. Is that the question?
So much has changed for teachers. You know, in our system, this is the first year they're writing SLOs. So our mentors have never had to do that, are not getting necessarily the training in the building with their team on writing SLOs. So to now go in and support, it's very difficult for them. And that SLOs is just one piece of that challenge.
Here.
Both of these ladies talked about time, and I think that if the COMAR regulation in a way tried to address that by suggesting accommodations that schools could make to reduce workloads for new teachers, and but that was hard to convince people in the school to reduce the workload, take them off of committees so that they have time to meet with their mentors. So I think trying to get that message out why we are asking for that, why that is in COMAR.
So it might not even be structural barriers to time, but it actually might be cultural or just everyday practice, how that can get in the way of having teachers engage in this mentoring. Is that right? Yep. Okay.
I think there were two that I really thought of. One is the lack of accountability for a school system to align with COMAR in the teacher reduction regulation, because there's no accountability for a school system to do it. And I think the second piece is in terms of the actual work that the mentors do, even when they are up to snuff and up to par on the SLOs, trying to ensure that the coaching and the mentoring that is going on with that new teacher aligns to the new teacher's work within the SLO, because oftentimes what the new teacher needs to be focusing on within their SLO does not match to the needs of what has to occur between that mentor and mentee.
So relevance,
yes.
Whether the teacher is actually getting to dictate, I need help with this right now because this is what's being expected of me and this is how my kids are interacting with that expectation. So I see, so relevance.
Formalized training, no matter what county you're in, maybe the training is different. Maybe it's not structured. Maybe it's a 1-credit class where it's only 5 weeks, and you may have another county that has a 3-credit course of 15 weeks, so everything is different. And also capacity and money is not available in all counties and all programs to provide the support for mentors and for coaching and to provide stipends for that professionalism.
One more here. The next one is that the induction coordinators and the mentors themselves and the coaches in a school system can often be isolated. I happen to think that you guys are lucky that you get to have your own kind of professional learning community in this group. But that's not the case everywhere, and it's not necessarily the case consistently enough for all of you, even though you have this group. And think about race to the top after the funding is gone. Is it still going to allow this group to engage each other or other coaches in perfecting their practice and supporting the work that you do in schools? So not only you, but also the school-based instructional coordinators and coaches, but thinking about that coaching really can be a lonely position. Even the younger instructional coaches that we put into school systems now, we know that they are superstar teachers. They're ready, they're good at at supporting student learning, they get vaulted into this new position, and then they're kind of all alone again. They might have had a lot of collaboration opportunities as a teacher, as a peer, but then when they're put in this position, they really don't always have a network. So let me tell you, I think I alluded to the fact that I think technology may be able to help us with a lot of the different barriers that you talked about. So time, relevance, standardization of the coaching expertise, of the expertise of coaches. Those are all things that technology can do now. I'm going to give you one example that's not perfect, but it is a new approach that we at Learning Forward are investing in ourselves to figure out if this is the new model, the new disruptive innovation, the creativity, the new way that we can expand the impact of coaching. And if you remember that 2x2 square, we said that one-on-one coaching has the potential for deep impact, but it has rather limited scalability. You only touch one teacher at a time, and there are only so many of you. So we think that technology may have the opportunity and the potential to actually move that curve a bit. So still have its deep impact, but maybe increase its scalability. And so the model that I'm going to share with you is live online coaching. This is different than what you think of in terms of coaching on Skype or on Google Hangouts or anything like that, where a teacher